All right, good morning. Let's kick the session off. I'm Nick from Capileta. I'm a business development manager for Juniper and Mist Systems. So I'll be giving the presentation today about everything that's new in the Mist ecosystem today. So if I kick it off with the agenda, first it's going to be a quick refresh on the AI-driven enterprise, followed by what's new in the system, ending up with some use cases. So AI-driven enterprise, what's in a name? The AI-driven enterprise basically has one goal, and it's using AI to provide a better experience. So by using microservices architecture, you'll be able to give both resiliency to the user operation. Now, why microservices? Microservices are services that run independent of each other, which means if one of those services fails, the other services just keep on continuing. The operation keeps on going. And it also has another important advantage. That is that you can do an upgrade of one service one by one, which means you can update the entire system without ever being down. Now, another key aspect of the AI-driven enterprise is getting insight in the user experience. You want to know how the user is experiencing getting on the network and knowing if his applications work as expected or not. And the AI engine is bringing automation and insights into that platform. Now, we've spoken about AI, that's typical buzzwords. What is AI bringing that other legacy networks don't bring? Well, there are two major benefits of using AI. One, it will truly help you in getting automated and insights and defining actions that can automatically be taken even for non-programmed events. So it's not an if-then-else action. It's using all the data that's available into the cloud platform and giving you insights and taking actions with that data that's being delivered there. All of the key benefit of delivering a better user experience. Now, if we look to Juniper, they already had a part of the AI-driven enterprise. Now, with Mist Systems, they've added wireless to that proposition. And with Mist Systems also came a big cloud engine, an AI engine, that can store all the events and all the data and process the data to give you the full visibility and policy control. So that was the first version that was created and developed with the wireless system. They quickly added version 2.0, which added the wired assurance to the proposition. And the wired assurance meant you have now visibility both for wireless clients, but also for wired clients which are on your network. That was extended security that was added to the solution. And today we've extended that solution with WAN assurance. So you will have full visibility into your entire ecosystem. Now, those aren't just products that you add, it's basically a full solution driven by microservices and artificial intelligence, which deliver a number of Mist cloud services. And those that know Mist from when before it was acquired by Juniper will know that there were only 4 cloud services available back then. It's now been extended to 7 services. So you see that services are quickly being developed and you get more and more insights into the solution as a whole. And of course, at the basis, there's the wireless infrastructure. So you can see your access points together with the Mist Edge, now also being augmented with wireless infrastructure, wired infrastructure, and now with the WAN infrastructure on the SRX gateway devices. To get deeper to the point about what's new today in the AI-driven enterprise, let's see what's being announced right now. So first of all, we have the Mist conversational interface. And the conversational interface brings an experience, a chat-like experience that you can now talk to. Just like any website that has a chat function, it has the same functionality and the same feeling. You can talk to a human almost that will help you solve certain issues. Also new is the one I mentioned, WAN assurance. It's currently being developed, which means Q3 was for Juniper employees to set it up and test it out. Q4 can be used for partners to test the solution. And then in the beginning of 2021, it will also be available for end users. And lastly, of course, there are also a number of new access points in the portfolio, which we should talk about. And it starts with the access point first. So if we look at the Wi-Fi 6 access point portfolio, there only was an AP43 available with both internal and external antennas. And you now have 4 new extra access points. So how does the portfolio look like? Well, if I start off with the AP43, you'll see it's the top of the line access point. So it has a 4x4 radio, both on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz bands. And it also has Bluetooth 5.0 BLE interface with a 16-element directional antenna, which means you can track users and use wayfinding in your solution. You can very accurately determine where a device is located with an accuracy of 1 to 3 meters. And the unique feature of the AP43 is also it has built-in IoT sensors for both humidity, pressure, and temperature. Also added to that is an extra IoT port. So if you would have some other sensors that you can connect to it, you can use the IoT port to do so. And if that wasn't enough, you can even use the USB expansion port to add additional devices to that access point. So this one is the top of the line. It basically has all the features running into it. Now the new access points are positioned just a little bit below that, starting off with the AP33. It has a limited 2.4 gigahertz radio, and by limited I mean it's a 2x2 stream antenna that's in there, which is actually more than sufficient to provide coverage for 2.4 gigahertz band. The one thing that you're missing out on was that IoT sensor part. So there's no built-in sensors and there's also no IoT port. Although you can still use the USB expansion port to add other ecosystems to the access point. The next access point is the AP32, and it's available both as an AP with internal antennas or external antennas, if you're choosing. It's basically identical to the AP33 with one big difference. You can no longer use the wayfinding feature because the 16 array antenna has now been replaced by an omnidirectional antenna. It means you still have asset visibility, you know where the assets are and which general area they are, but it's no longer accurate enough to use the solution as a wayfinding solution. And if I look at the last access point that was added is the AP12. It's a, how should I say it, a smaller AP, which can definitely be used in, for example, hotel rooms, dorms, or even home environments. You power it by one Ethernet cable and you have a switch below that where you can use 3 other ports as a switch. So if you want to connect, for example, a phone to that system, you could. It basically gives you the most flexible deployment possibilities in most scenarios. And I only have one more new access point to go, and it's a specialty AP. And by specialty, I mean it's an outdoor AP. So use cases will be, I think, somewhat limited to outdoor usage or indoor usage where temperatures go below freezing point, because temperature range has been extended from -20 degrees to 65 degrees. Apart from that, you also have full power and capability. So it's again a 4-stream AP with virtual 16-element directional antennas. So you see there's a lot of new Wi-Fi 6 access point being brought into the proposition. New and AI-driven enterprise is now the Marvis conversational interface. Now, we already knew Marvis from when you could use natural language and ask questions. It's now been extended as a sort of, how should I say it, internal employee. You can think of it as someone being behind the screen and directing you to where your attention is needed. It will help you identify problems, troubleshooting them, and even beyond that. Perhaps it's best to look at an example and see how it actually works based on a video. So if you want to use the Marvis, you click on the icon and a chat box pops up and will immediately identify some actions that can be taken. If you're interested in the AP issues, you click on it and it will identify that you found 2 different issues impacting 5 APs. And say you want to look at the AP that has a health check failed, we click on that, and Marvis will identify that John Desk number 10 had some health issues. It's recommended for an upgrade, and it says there is a new upgrade available. Do you want to upgrade? Simply typing yes into the box, and Marvis does all the rest. The AP will be upgraded to the newest version. Now, if you want to verify whether the AP has been upgraded or not, you can get a list of the APs in a certain vicinity. So show APs from the Mist office. It will show you a list of APs that's on there. You select the version you want to see, and you can now verify that the John Desk AP has been upgraded to the latest version. Marvis is even intelligent enough to identify typos in your question. So say you have thick fingers and you type the question Bitcoin, it will still understand what you're trying to say and will identify which clients are unhappy in this case. Now, say you're interested in a particular client, Mist PI6, it will start troubleshooting on them. And you can click the buttons to see what might be the possible issue. So that the client has an issue 1% of the time. We can drill down further to see when it had some failures. And it will show you right in the pop-up when some failures occurred. Now you can see there aren't a lot of failures, but still the client reported something was wrong. So if you say show client insights, it will direct you to the right page in the Mist interface, and even context-aware, going to the correct client for troubleshooting. Now say you didn't find what you were looking for, simply say no, and Marvis will suggest to open a support ticket for you. You say yes, open a ticket, and that's that. Support ticket was opened for you. Mist can now contact you when they have a possible solution. So I said it was an internal employee, and you can almost think of it as an internal employee doing a lot of work for you in the background and helping you out with what's really important and where your attention should be going. Now, we were troubleshooting a client device, and of course, client device troubleshooting is difficult. That's why they also have the Marvis SDK available, which means you can now create applications that you deploy on a mobile phone. Sorry, on the Android is supported at the moment. But that information can give you a lot of different insights. For example, roaming is typically a client decision. It's a client's decision to know signal is bad enough, I'll switch to another device, or I see another AP which is much better and I'll roam to that device. Now that information can now also be driven through the AI and fed into Marvis. And Marvis can also use that data to give you further insights and knowing whether an issue is client related or more general Wi-Fi related. Then you have the WAN assurance. What's WAN assurance? It's basically using SRX telemetry data, feeding it into the Mist engine. And what's telemetry data are we driving into the engine? It's basically a lot of different stuff. So it ranges from basic SRX health, CPU usage, temperature, available memory, how the PoE interfaces look like, and all the information. But also information like throughput, what's the latency on your line and link, what's the jitter, what's the congestion. We can see what applications are being used, because as a RICS, firewalls are also application aware. So you can use also that information to know which applications were detected and how things are going over there. You can see configuration changes, system alerts even. And you can get an overview of which links and aggregates consumed what bandwidth and what the impact was. Now, all that data is being fed into the Marvis system or the AI system, and it's being used to help you identify a full range of possible issues. So say, for example, a client has an issue with a Zoom call. Marvis now has full visibility ranging from the client with Wi-Fi assurance over to the wired network with wired assurance, and now extended to the WAN edge, giving you full insight how the application is supposed to work. Again, I think it's most obvious with a video. So say, for example, you want to look at an interface for the last 7 days. You will see different WAN items here. Let me quickly click pause because video goes a bit fast. You can see your overall gateway health, which shows how the CPU usage was last 7 days, memory, temperature, power, and all those gateway related things. You can also see the WAN link health, and that includes IPsec tunnels, routing protocols, and even WAN interfaces. Or you can also see the app experience, how the experience was for a certain app. For example, Zoom and Teams are really jitter sensitive. It doesn't matter if there's a latency of 100 milliseconds, as long as there's not too much jitter, audio will sound fine. Oops, and I was a bit too fast on my mouse click. Okay. So you can see that different overview over there. You can click through that information, where you can quickly identify the root cause whereby something went through. So for example, if you click Gateway Health, you can see that some CPU was at 100% for a certain time. And you can also look at the affected items if something went wrong. So if you click on a certain gateway, you can see the usage of that gateway over time for the last 7 days. Or you can also scroll down, see what events occurred at that gateway, possibly giving you insights in why something went bad or went as expected. Or you can also see an overview of interfaces and different statistics all in one single page. So I think it gives a great overview in one item. Now you can also use Marvis again with the conversational interface, asking why something went bad now. So for example, Abby had a Skype session that was bad. You ask the question, why was Abby's Skype call bad? And quickly hitting pause because it's not on the phone, it will show you the last calls that Abby made, and you can now identify which call you want to investigate further. It will show up what you can troubleshoot. So going from the user over to the AP to the switch, you can see that the AP has an orange exclamation mark, which means probably something went bad over there. And if you have a look, it says it has some medium interference, not likely. But there's also the SRX firewall with a red alert. And if you look what Marvis said, it said it's mostly due to high latency on the gateway. You click on the gateway and Marvis identified the root cause as being abnormal high latency from a certain interface, most likely due to the application server not responding quickly enough. If you go have a look at the use cases, there's one use case, is the new reality. And it includes two parts. One is proximity tracing, one is home working. And I'll start off with the first one, home working. You can use any access point that you like, ranging from the AP12, typically used for home working, all the way over to AP 63 if you want an auto AP at your home. To build up tunnels automatically to the Mist Edge appliance, which also runs microservices, which means the appliance can be upgraded seamlessly without user interruption. But you can now basically work from home and enjoy the same experience with your applications as you did in the office. So if something went wrong, you can still ask the question, what went wrong with my Skype call? And the issue can be troubleshooted and information can be given to that whole range of information. Now you're not limited to just working from home. You can also work from the office. But of course, in the office, you have different, I'd say problems, it's not the correct word, challenges is perhaps a better word. First one is congestion alerting. Say, for example, the coffee area at a certain hour, 10 o'clock, for example, might be congested because a lot of people are gathering there wanting their morning coffee. Well, Mist can now alert you that a certain zone has a high congestion. That, of course, is only part of the solution. If a worker identifies himself as being COVID positive, you will also want to trace with journey mapping where that user has been last 24 hours till last 2 weeks or even further. And we'll show you a map showing what zones the user was most frequently in. Even a step further beyond that, you can also use proximity tracing and getting an overview with what users or devices the person has come in contact with and how long he was in contact with those devices. Now, you will need some information or some devices to accurately track users. One of those devices is simply your cell phone using Wi-Fi. It's simple, it's always on. However, know that the accuracy is relatively low. It has an accuracy of about 5 to 10 meters. But on the plus side, it's very easy to deploy. The other thing you can use, and it's much more accurate, is a BLE ID badge. It's always on, gives you better accuracy within 3 to 5 meters, but there's one downside, you will need to deploy all the BLE badges. Or a third solution is using a developed mobile application on your cell phone. Gives you a lot of different advantages, like for example, bidirectional communication. So you can now get a push notification if you enter a zone which is congested. And the accuracy is much better. Now, why would you want a mobile application to do that information? Also, say for example, you have multiple brands of cell phones. You have an iPhone, you have an Android, you have a Samsung phone, a Huawei phone. You can put an application on there, and if you put all those phones right next to each other, without the application, Mist would sort of say the devices are in the vicinity of each other, but they wouldn't be right next to each other. With the mobile application, you can exactly identify which device is active, which antennas are in there, and make corrections to that location. And the devices will be much more accurately displayed on the map. How does the occupancy work? So if you have a map drawn of your building, you can see which zones are green, yellow, or red. Now those zones need to be defined. And you define a zone by giving it a certain capacity. Say, for example, you gave the sales up area a capacity of 2 persons. There's 1 person in the area. It's currently 50% occupied. Now you can see all the information on a map, or of course, you can also see it in a list interface, whatever you desire to be most accurate. Now, if you want to configure those zones, you can also do so and identify what information you want to use to say whether a zone is fully occupied or not. So depending on your environment and setup, you may want to check different checkboxes right here. It even goes as far as giving you the possibility to give a public occupancy dashboard. So you can put it on the screen somewhere without having to access the full Mist interface. So if you copy that URL and paste it in the browser, users can now visit that page themselves and identify which zone is still free to visit or to work in. And if you want to use the proximity tracking, you can identify some details. So you type in, you want to investigate a certain site for a certain period, where you say, I want to see encounters that happened at least for 5 minutes for a certain device, which is now called Wi-Fi. And if you run the report, you will see that that device was mostly active in 2 areas, mostly in the marketing area and a little bit in the sales ops area, and came into contact with 5 contacts in the proximity. If you scroll down, you see where the location was of the user in time. So it was mostly the marketing area. And you also get an overview of with what other devices the user came into contact with. And if you scroll down further, you can see the proximity details, which you can, of course, download, giving you a full overview of at what time the person came into contact with what devices. And then I come to my last use case, which is wired and wireless. It's, I think, the most known use case. There's one thing new though. I think we all know the wired and wireless experience, that you can set the service levels expectations on the interface, but you can also identify certain anomalies on switches that are on the same side. And how it does that is using traffic information that is seen on the switch itself. So this one is a very easy one. You can see traffic information on the switch, and you see the blue line, which has the most usage on the switch. Well, Mist will identify that one as being the uplink port. Second example is oversimplified. You can see an orange line and a green line, and they kind of switch. So if the orange line goes down, green line goes up. And that information can be fed through the AI engine, which can then identify that dual uplink ports are being used. So it's basically machine learning that identifies the relationship between different switches and between different devices. So the information can then be used to identify root cause information. I think I went through all my slides. I'm open to any questions. Should you have one, you can type them either in the Q&A box or ask them live. I'll keep the session open for a couple of minutes. If there are no questions, I think we can close it up. I think we can close it up. If you should have any questions, please feel free to contact us. We'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Thanks for joining and have a nice day.